All right, and now I'd like to welcome to the stage Simon Wuestenberg, Chief Sales Officer at Anheuser-Busch. Simon has worked around the world for ABI over the past almost 20 years, having been president of AB1 and VP of On-Prem in the US and country director as well as other leadership positions around the world. Welcome, Simon. All right, let's get comfortable here.
All right.
I guess we got this hot off the press, right?
Hot off the press, freshly brewed Michelob Ultra Zero.
Okay, I'm gonna have
29 calories, Jen.
Whoa.
Can you believe it?
Well, you don't know this, but I'm going to challenge you to a drink off.
Let's do
A
it.
chug, if I can open, how about, you know what, you're a gentleman. Let's see who can finish it first. Thank you.
Go.
All right, ready?
Is this chugging it?
Place your bets. Yeah, we're chugging
Cheers.
it.
1, 2, 3. It's cold, isn't it?
All the way. Woo. There's a little foam in there, but we'll count it. Number one volume brand in the U.S.
So, Jen is a pro because what she did, I don't know if who here has been mic'd up and chugged a beer? I have done it before. It's not good for you. She has a handheld. She can remove the handheld and we will not hear when it comes up. But so I apologize on beforehand. So you're a pro.
We DQ the burps. There may be burps.
Yeah, all right.
So, okay, well, I think we broke the ice. I was going to ask you about having worked in Luxembourg.
Yeah.
You know, the nicest country in the world. You corrected me. You said it's the wealthiest country in the world. But why leave a place like that? Was your dream job to come to the U.S. to work for AB?
Yeah.
Or?
No, we had a lot of great opportunities as a family. So we lived 3 years in Luxembourg with young kids. Then we lived 3 years in Italy with young kids, which was a blast. I think, though, one of the coolest things I was able to do was, so I grew up in a small town called Leuven in Belgium. Leuven is a sort of small medieval town. It's gone through a lot over the centuries, like all these small towns. Somehow our city archive survived, the administrative city archive. You can trace back the Stella Artois brewery, its roots, you can trace it back almost 700 years. And so you grow up in a town like that, and it's very special. It's a brewing town. And you think nobody's going to get what it is to grow up there. But then so many years later, the company actually gave me the opportunity to move to St. Louis with my family. And guess what? Even if it's only 170 years, it's a brewing town, and it feels the same. And so having represented the company in my hometown, but then having done that in St. Louis, I think that's probably the coolest thing that we've done.
Very cool. All right, so in a matter of hours, you're leaving here to go to Nashville.
Yeah, it's a big week.
Yeah,
big week.
Big week. They're picking you up on the way, right? Can you give us a high-level look at what you all will be talking about, AB's playbook for 2025?
Yeah, so SAMCOM, for those of you that don't know, is sort of our annual big conference where we bring all our wholesalers in. It's a very important moment. Not only do we do big presentations, we also have what we call the immersion area, and that's exactly what it is where people sort of get to touch and feel all the great things that are going to come through life throughout the year. You've been before. We'll miss you this go around. We're happy we got Harry. But I think what you'll see, certainly if you've been before, is a lot of consistency, a lot of focus, and a lot of commitment. And that commitment is investment. And so we're bringing a very strong plan. I think our wholesalers have seen a lot of that already. We're going to be very focused on what we call our mega brands, our priority brands. We have what we call these big mega platforms that are occasions where people are going to drink beer and drink all those beers or beyond beer. So we're very focused on that. And we're going to do that at high intensity. And I think with that comes our commitment to the category. We talked a lot about the category here, but it's not lost on us that we're by far the biggest brewery in the room, and we got to make sure that we lead category health. And so these mega brands, we selected them because they all play into something that's driving industry health, and we're going to play our role as a leader, and we're going to be bringing a lot of investment to the market as we do so.
Okay, All right, and we'll know more about that in the next few days.
Yes, we're very excited.
Yeah, well, so speaking of mega brands, Mich Ultra, definitely one of your mega brands.
Yeah.
And you guys are a little bit different from the other big brewers in that you are bringing a huge new-to-world product out this year. We've talked about SKU rationalization this whole few days, but big play, just starting to roll, right? How has the early rollout of Mich Ultra Zero gone?
It's gone really well. I'll start by saying, because I do think it's important in the story of Michelob Ultra Zero, is that Michelob Ultra is today the fastest growing brand in the industry. And so that brand is not only a brand that operates at scale, because it's very large, it's grown very fast, and we know that consumers love the brand. And it obviously plays into a few of these big trends, premiumization, this idea of health and wellness, and Michelob Ultra has been leading that and opening new beer occasions, right? It's the reason Michelob Ultra was sort of created, was to bring people into the category. It continues to do that very well. We believe with Zero, that's exactly what we're going to be offering, because people typically, when they're looking for an NA product, they want, on the one hand, they may be thinking about this idea of health and wellness. The other thing is social inclusion. How can I be part of this? It's not going to feel the same if I'm just drinking the next glass of water. And they want to have something that's great for them that they can be drinking. So our brewers have been doing an unbelievable piece of work. We only got 29 calories on this product. We just launched it, right? So the official launch date was the 30th of December, so it's very early to understand what's happening. We got some early reads from customers. Customers jumped on it, right? It's a fast-growing segment, albeit small, fast-growing. And the first returns have been very, very positive. So our wholesalers are out there, they're doing God's work. Big focus for us is obviously large format, but certainly also the on-premise. We believe at 29 calories, this is the brand that should be in every on-premise account.
Interesting. And will it also, because obviously Mich Ultra itself has been ubiquitous. I mean, you can't watch a live sports event without seeing Mich Ultra, which I think has a little something to do with its great growth. But will it be everywhere that Mich Ultra is?
It'll be in those places. Also, the way we want to see it merchandised on display will be together with Michelob Ultra. I think, as everybody hopefully has seen over the last year, talking about these sports, we have a long history in golf and the PGA. We have a long history in anything, the marathons of New York, etc. We added NBA to the lineup. I think the big novelty of 2024 that really worked for us was adding and consolidating soccer, which is such a fast-growing sport. We had the Copa America, we're the sponsor of the MLS, and adding soccer under the Ultra umbrella. And then as we had Copa America, we also had the Olympics, and so we call it the summer of sports. And I think it's just as we think about what we're here to do as an industry, everyone here in this room, is what are those occasions that are not our typical occasions where we've been strong for so many years, but what are those new occasions that come up where people will be drinking, and how can we make sure that we show up in a very credible and strong way? And for us, this idea of soccer with Michelob Ultra, certainly as we're building towards a World Cup here in the United States in 2026, is a big, big bet. And we know that that's going to be fueling the growth of the brand.
So now all you're missing is gaming, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of talking about gaming. I don't know how much people drink exactly while they're gaming, but we all know that these big moments, these gathering moments, whether you're watching now an NFL playoff game, whether it's the Olympics and you're doing that, or whether it's soccer and people are rooting on their own team now in the FIFA Club Championship that's coming along. What are the occasions where we can make sure that we show up in a stronger way and make sure that beer becomes, a natural part of those new occasions? And that's going to drive the category growth, and that's where we're putting our dollars. That's what we're focused on. And I'll give our wholesalers a lot of credit. I think if you look at the sort of archetypical average wholesaler may not be the biggest soccer fan, right? There's a lot of people in the room at our SAMCOM will admit that they don't know the offside rule in soccer. But when we look at the execution of our soccer plans, it was unbelievable. Anybody who spent a little bit of time in the market saw these messy standouts of the Copa. So I think we have the power as a system to make sure that we can, at scale, execute these big platforms that will bring people into our category. Because guess what? Soccer is a little younger, is a little more diverse, a little more Hispanic, and they watch TV, they watch soccer, they'll come into our category.
Well, let's talk about Mich Ultra on draft. I don't know if Jen Hawk is in here.
There you go. Hey, Jen.
Well, so we got the news from Draftline a couple weeks ago that in their data, Mich Ultra had surpassed Bud Light as the top draft brand by share of lines. And I'm curious how you all take this news. I mean, I would think it's a good thing. It's a more premium brand, right?
Mm-hmm. No, one is, the on-premise is big. I think somebody here mentioned the on-premise before. I think when you look at the industry, however you want to count it, it's between 15-20%. But if you look at it at the amount of dollars that people spend on beer, it's probably 50% of the beer people spend on beer is being spent in the on-premise. It is also, and we know this because we're very fortunate to have this channel. Many CPG companies don't have the on-premise. They would love to have an on-premise. We sometimes complain about the on-premise because it's messy, there's a lot of accounts, it's smaller drops, etc. But we know that the on-premise is where brands are built. And so there's a lot of data sources. Jen's got a great data source as well. All of them will show you that Bud Light and Michelob Ultra are the number 1 and 2 brands. By the way, Bud Light has about 30% more handles than the next competitive brand. We're incredibly proud to be having in the on-premise channel the number 1 and 2 brands on tap, and then we got Michelob Ultra being the fastest growing brand in the industry. And a lot of other brands, if you look at Busch Light, which is now the second fastest growing brand in the industry that's grown at a fast clip, a lot of that is also coming out of the on-premise. And then we have our more premium brands, like for example, Kona Big Wave, that are also on a tear, because we have decided together with our wholesalers that we want to make sure that we play a very active role within that channel, because it is where habits are built, it is where brands are built. And it's where I think probably all of us have had some of the best experiences of our lives was in a bar. And we want to make sure that we show up there.
Absolutely. Okay, so obviously we have to talk about Bud Light.
Yeah.
Right? Still, as I said, obviously still the number 1 brand by volume in the U.S. But obviously Michelob Ultra now bigger in dollars. So how does that change how you guys allocate investment, attention to Bud Light?
Yeah, I think for probably the first time, you may have been there, in 2018, I think our CEO stood up on stage and said, hey, Michelob Ultras are top priority. And I think in a very disciplined and consistent way, that's what we've been executing. Now, you got to be able to do both. And I think you called it out well, as Bud Light today is the number 1 brand by volume in the United States. It is the number 1 brand in rate of sale in the United States. So with that comes a tremendous opportunity for us to make sure that we do all the right things with the brand. And when you look at Bud Light, consumers are expecting 2 things of us. One is sort of the levity, the humor, and you probably saw the Shane Gillis commercial, wrong commercial here around college football that we enjoyed, and there's a lot more great work coming. So we're doing that. We got some great stuff coming for Super Bowl. I'd love to tell you, but I can't.
Go ahead, you can tell me.
Yeah.
I should have given you the alcoholic beer.
That's it, exactly. But the second one is showing up in these moments, and it's these platforms like the NFL, where they know that Bud Light has always been a part of. And so college football for us has become a little bit more important. And then, of course, we added a big new one, which has been the UFC. It's been a great partnership. I'll give a lot of credit to our wholesalers as well. I don't think there's been this many octagons in stores all over the country as there have been in the last year, because this system got behind it, executed at a very high level. And that has helped us make sure that Bud Light is the juggernaut that it is.
Can you dig into the UFC deal? It's already been a year that's been in place, which is crazy. But
yeah,
is that moving the needle for Bud Light? Because it seems like, there's Dana White could do anything.
Yeah, no, he's a fantastic partner. I think he's the one, I think he reminded the world pretty much that we were his first partner when he got started. We were alongside him to do that. And so he has a very strong, genuine excitement for our partnership. Dana also likes to wear Bud Light shirts, 1 out of 2 days, it seems. I've seen him wear an Estrella shirt as well, Estrella Jalisco shirt, by the way, so he likes that too. But he's been a great partner. We got started in January, so it's exactly 1 year. Obviously, we had to figure out the first 2 months, and I think then as our system sort of got going, I think you see the power of the AB wholesalers come to life. And so obviously UFC is an incredibly relevant proposition in the on-premise channel that we talked about. And that has helped us tremendously make sure that we showed up strong with Bud Light in that channel. But I think almost to the surprise of the UFC is we've been able as a system to translate that into stores and into the off-premise channel as well. And we get the feedback from a lot of our key accounts, actually, big fight nights, they will be selling more beers. And so now we're able to credibly activate it in a very big way. So we're very happy with the partnership. We got a lot more to come. Dana's an unbelievable partner, and we know that it's an incredibly relevant platform. Again, skews very young. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to go to a UFC game. It skews very young. It skews obviously towards people that drink alc bev, so that's great for us because that means we play in an interesting arena. And it also skews a little bit more diverse, a little bit more Hispanic, which is great for us because that's where a lot of historical and future consumption is going to be. So we're super happy about the partnership.
And I'll spring a surprise one on you, too. Would you ever consider UFC for any of your other brands?
Right now, it's not in the works. I think we get a question a lot about any of our platforms. I think we try to be very disciplined to make sure that within our platforms that we give everything a home. And that's also one of the reasons, for example, that I talked about soccer, which actually was one of the, probably because it's a younger sport, it had been sort of across brands, and that's where we made the big move as now soccer's becoming a really strong, big platform in the United States is, hey, we're going to consolidate it, and that's going to be Michelob Ultra. And then we're going to make sure, whether it's the Super Bowl commercial to the Copa America activation that we do in the month, everything that happens above the line to below the line, that's going to be Michelob Ultra. And we believe as well that if we do that well, setting up these what we call mega platforms that really drive beer occasions, and we communicate very clearly on it with our wholesalers, we can make those platforms come to life. And so with UFC today, that is very much about Bud Light, and you see that all the way through the line.
Okay. Well, speaking of this approach that you all have with the mega brands, some of your spirits RTDs are part of your mega brand lineup. And I would be remiss not to talk about those because you guys have done really well with those. I would think almost against like all odds. You're a beer company, but you've done really well with Cutwater. I think is the number 2 brand in that segment, and then Neutral's not far behind. So how big can those get? I mean, do you see a day where they could get to 20% of your portfolio dollars, 30%?
Yeah, I think the role of this segment we shouldn't underestimate, and I think why this segment is relevant for the wholesalers in the room is we know that most of that volume lives on your trucks. Whether you're an AB wholesaler or you're a competitive wholesaler, this idea of whether it's spirits-based or malt-based or sugar-based or whatever the base is, if you call it hard beverage, together with beer, lives on your truck. This is what we as an industry do very well. We can make great liquids, we put it in cans, and we can get it very well distributed and very well marketed. And so actually here in the last quarter, I've been hearing a lot of doom and gloom here about the industry, but if you look in the last quarter, beer and hard beverages combined beat the total store. Guess what that means for any of our retailers, right? Already beer is a top 3 category for all of our channels. Now these people are looking at us and they're seeing that we are outperforming the store. So not only are we bringing traffic, units, people into the door, we're actually also bringing growth that's outpacing their total store. That is what this room here can do. And so for us, that is the role of what we call hard beverage. And so some of that hard beverage effectively is spirits-based. And for us, Cutwater and Neutral are the strong leading brands that we have. We like to look at it through a different lens. We have a sort of full-flavored cocktail, typically higher ABV. That's where Cutwater plays. We know that's a slightly different occasion, slightly different consumer. Within that space, we're by far the market leader. A lot of people have come in, but Cutwater is such a strong brand. The team, the distillers do such a good job at bringing innovations, and our wholesalers have done a tremendous job bringing it to market. Then you have Neutral, where obviously in that category, High Noon is a leader, right? They've done a very good job building it, but Neutral is a very strong number 2. We're actually bigger than the 4 next guys, right? That's our number 2 position. So how big it's going to get, I don't have a crystal ball, I can't see it, but for us, clearly, this is a strong growth driver. What is unbelievable is that we didn't used to sell any spirits, and right now, 30% of the dollar growth in the spirits industry is being delivered by just these 2 brands. They're being made by us, traditionally a brewer, and we've been able to do that pivot, not only building those capabilities as a brewer, but together with our wholesalers. Because there was a lot of new skills that we had to develop as a whole system and figure things out. I think Jim said it well. Sometimes you do things and you don't know a lot as you get started. We had to figure that out as we got going. And today, it's a formidable portfolio that we have. A lot of opportunity. We just come off the holidays. Typically, spirits sell a little more, so you get this inverse sort of velocity versus what we may be used to with beer. And we've done incredibly well here as we close out the year. So much more to come. Very excited about that portfolio. But I think for all of us, we got to make sure that we look at this idea of hard beverage as something that we can do better than anyone else. If we do well, it's going to live on our trucks. And if we do well, we're going to be driving the growth of our customers.
Right. Well, so obviously as the chief of sales for the biggest beer business in the U.S., when you go into the trade, what are you noticing about the on-premise, the off-premise, the trends for 2025? I know we talk about this ad nauseum, but I'm curious what you see in your thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of puts and takes, and is what you see month over month, quarter over quarter. I think we've tried to take a sort of long-term view of what do we believe is driving growth in the world that we operate in. And the world we operate in, to a large extent, is beer, but of course, alc bev, but even CPG. And I think as you walk, I think many of us have the habit as you go to a store, you don't just walk to the beer aisle, but you actually walk around, you look at cereal, look at other stuff, right? And see what's happening in a store. We believe there's these 4 big trends that are actually driving consumer behavior or steering them towards certain places. And not a coincidence that then these mega brands, these focus brands that we picked, they're actually building on those 4 trends. Because we believe if we lean into those 4 trends, we're going to be having a healthier category, and we're going to be creating category growth, which we believe is the leader by far in this industry. That's what our job is here to do. And so if I go through them, this idea of health and wellness is a very important one of them. We believe that, not just in our category, but in many categories, that's been a growth driver. We believe Michelob Ultra plays in that space better than anyone else. And we've had an unbelievable opportunity now with Ultra Zero to expand on that. And, we're going to be doubling down in that space. Fastest growing brand right now, and we hope it will be as well in 2025. Second one is this idea of premiumization. Despite all the pressure on consumers that everybody likes to talk about, I think as you look at most of the reports, there is this bifurcation. A lot of volume is going into more premium products still today. That's real. Ultra, by the way, is a more premium product, but for us, that goes into some other brands like a Kona Big Wave, like a Stella Artois, and so forth. The third one, and we talked a lot about it today, is flavors, right? People are looking for more sort of flavor opportunities. This is this whole role of the hard beverage segment. For us, it lives in different spaces, but of course the biggest focus is Cutwater and Neutral. And then the fourth one is what we call the value equation. And the value equation is a very interesting one today because it used to be a little bit more about convenience. Hey, how is it easy for me, right, in my life? I'm so busy, et cetera. And we've seen over the last probably 24 months that it has really gotten to a little bit more price sensitiveness. So you have on the one hand, you have this bifurcation. On the one hand, you got this premiumization trend. On the other hand, in the value equation, people are looking for a good deal. And so we have the saying from Kyle Norrington, our chief marketing officer, likes to remind us that a good beer at a good price is a great deal. And obviously for us, that's led with Busch Light. Busch Light was this regional brand by all sense of purpose. And right now, Busch Light has become a national brand. It's grown in all our regions. It's the second fastest growing brand in the category. It's a cultural icon, but it's also an affordable icon. And so we're meeting consumers where they want to be, hitting hard on this value equation. And so these are the 4 big trends. If you'd be selling cereal, I think you could recognize some of them as well. They play in alc bev as well. That's how we sort of look at what's happening in the industry. That's how we've organized our portfolio, and that's how we try to activate it.
Right, right. And of course, when I ask you about retail, I also then have to ask you about shelf space, right?
Sure.
And what's going to happen for the spring with the shelf resets. Are you guys going to gain, lose, keep, and which brands will drive? I think I have an idea of which brands will drive, but please.
Sure. I mean, I think there's a little bit of a bad habit of suppliers coming up and talking about shelf space as if it's theirs. I think, first of all, this real estate is the retailer's real estate. And these retailers, in the end, will make decisions based on what they believe is best for their business. And, we mentioned here we're a highly regulated industry, so we're not contracting, we're not paying for shelf space. And so there's the great meritocracy of, in the end, what a retailer is believing is going to be the best allocation of space. All of us, all the suppliers here, we try to play an advising role as we do it. We're very active in that. So about 60% of the dollars in the stores in this country are covered by an Anheuser-Busch captaincy. So we see a lot, we hear a lot, we give a lot of advice. We try to be, when we have a category head on, as impartial as we can be, so we actually drive category growth. And we measure ourselves. So where we are category captain and our competitor is not, the category is healthier. Every time again, because we are less self-serving as we allocate some of these space decisions. And what we try to do is do it in a way that will actually drive category health and category growth, because we believe that is our role. So I don't want to talk about the space as if it's mine, right? I do believe we have a strong opinion about what's better for the category. We try to advise it actively. I think there was a lot of talk about what was going to happen. I think when all the dust settled, it was okay. I think we called it a few times. Michel said it on his quarterly earnings many times, and every time, everything Michel said in his quarterly earnings happened exactly to a T. So I think we called it. I think we feel really good about what happened in the fall sets, and I think we're very confident about what's coming in the spring sets. But more importantly, we're working with our retailers to say, how do you manage this big category with all these SKUs so that we don't smother ourselves, but so that we actually stimulate category growth?
Okay. If you all have any questions, and I'm sure you do, please pass them down, and we'll try to get those answered for you. We've got some spicy ones left. 5 minutes.
All right, let's go.
All right. Does it concern AB breast that so many of your whole... Yeah, are you reaching for the real stuff now? Oh, okay.
I got a long week with Samcom, Jen.
That's true. That's
Plus,
true.
they're not sending you, they're sending Harry, so it's going to be a tough Samcom.
You don't want to fall off of a Clydesdale, so
Yeah,
you know.
that's it.
So yeah, does it concern AB breast that so many of your wholesalers are picking up D9 beverages? Because I do believe it's the AB network that tends to over-index in these.
So I don't have a lot of information on who exactly carries what. I'll echo Harry. It's illegal.
Yeah.
And I think with that, all I can say is that I am 100% focused on making sure that we're doing the right thing for the category and for our role within the category. And what we expect is that our wholesalers, whether they're in the room here or at Samcom, are also very focused, that their primary focus, the thing that they wake up with and want to go do, is drive the health of this category, which, by the way, keeps the lights on and much more in all of our businesses. So.
Okay. And of course, Ghost sold to KDP last fall, is exiting many of your wholesalers, if not most of them. The question we've gotten is, well, is AB going to replace that with something? So.
Yeah, I think so. The Ghost story is an incredible one, right? Because I think there's a lot of people here that, or all of us here, are somehow connected to this business. It's very hard to build brands, and I think this experience sort of showed that we've built capabilities, and I'll say it again, as a system, not just us as the brewer, or in this case, the maker of Ghost, but as a system and our wholesalers. How do we merchandise this? How do we build these brands? So we're incredibly proud of what we achieved with Ghost. I think we're a company that's known to be open for business. We always have. I think it's a little too soon to talk about that right now, but I will say, having these capabilities and having demonstrated to ourselves, having demonstrated to the market that we have these capabilities, leaves us in a great spot.
Yeah. And, you know, obviously, speaking of Ghost, they did a deal. How are you all thinking of M&A more generally?
Yeah, I mean, we're probably one of the more active players in M&A. Like, if you look over the years, there's a lot of things that we've done. So obviously, we believe that M&A in a very disciplined and focused way can add some things to our business. I think some of the things we just talked about are actually very recent M&As. Cutwater was not ours. There was actually a lot of spirits companies looking at the Cutwater company as young and small as it was, and we were able to acquire it, and then keeping Yusuf and Earl, the founders, and together with them, building it into the success story that it is today, together with our wholesalers. So I think we're very interested in those kind of things. Neutral is very similar. We actually acquired Neutral in Canada, which was a proven proposition, great liquid, strong brand, and then we were able to bring that here and from nothing build a very successful business both for us, our wholesalers, and our retailers. So I think obviously, clearly from that, I think it's if M&A helps us do those things, it's very interesting to us. At the same time, you know, we do believe we have some strong internal brand building capabilities. What I will say is we want to be very disciplined and focused in how we do that.
Right. And is ZX Ventures still a thing, or?
ZX Ventures as a unit is not a thing.
Okay.
No.
I wasn't sure. We may have even covered that, but, you know, so much, you know, in and out. Okay, will Ultra Zero appear in advertising with Ultra since you will have them together on displays? Or will Zero have its own campaign?
It will have its own campaign. Obviously, they're closely related. So it will live in the Michelob Ultra world, but it will have its own dedicated sort of campaign. As with any new brand, you got to make sure that you build awareness. The job at hand right now for us is to build distribution so that as we turn the awareness campaigns on, and consumers can actually find it. Interestingly, based on some of the early reads, a lot of consumers are already finding it because it's simple. The product also explains itself. You know exactly what an Ultra Zero will be. But so it will have separate campaign. It'll be merchandised in stores together. We believe it's very incremental, and then obviously on shelf, what we're recommending is that it lives in the NA space.
Mm-hmm. Some people have asked us, you know, is it too close to the original? Right, it's already, you start from a low-cal place. You start from like a lower, you know, ABV place. Is it too similar?
Yeah, I mean, we know the NA space really well. We are the #1 brewer in non-alcoholic, and the biggest non-alcoholic brand is Budweiser Zero, which, funny enough, is also a very strong, big, known brand with a lot of awareness that then branched out and did a very high-quality liquid because, I don't know the last time any of you had a Bud Zero, but if you haven't had one, you should try one. It's a delicious beer, and we were able to build off that sort of brand knowledge. By the way, another brand is Busch NA, which actually, sneakily, nobody's talking about. It's grown really fast. It's very big. It's picking up a lot of distribution. So I think it's been proven that we can come off these strong brands and do a zero version. That's what we're doing here. So we're pretty confident. Not only that, I talked about what consumers are looking for is, on the one hand, there's this idea of health and wellness. On the other hand, there's this idea of social inclusion. Every time we've shown the Michelob Ultra Zero, also because the stats are so convincing with these 29 calories, people actually walk away with a more positive idea about Michelob Ultra as a whole. It just makes sense to consumers that we would be doing this.
That makes sense. Okay. Will you pick back up on Bud Light line extensions? Question number 1. Question number 2, as it relates to competition, are you more focused on battling Modelo or Coors Light / Miller Lite?
Yeah. I think, what was the question on Bud Light?
Well, question number 1, I should have asked them one at a time. Will you pick back up on Bud Light line extensions?
Yeah, so some of these extensions are very, very large, right? If you look at a Bud Light Lime, these are sizable brands within the industry. I think, interestingly, Bill mentioned some of his flavored beer. There is actually a role for flavored beer. And so the Bud Light extensions, I think, do a good job at playing that role. You have other extensions like a Bud Light Platinum that's actually the higher ABV version that's sizable. So these brands are massively distributed. They sell really well. So we're certainly committed to them. We make sure that we refresh their packaging and all those good things. So, but we don't have in the plan, we're not launching 10 new Bud Light line extensions. It's more sort of how do we build on what we have. There may be a little bit of creativity that we bring in certain parts of the country here in 2025, but nothing earth-shaking. And then the second question was on who do we look at more? I think we look more at growth spaces. And so I think when I go through those 4 trends I talked about, we believe that those 4 trends explain the growth of all the people that were up on stage before me, right? If they had growth or pockets of growth, we believe that's where it sits. And that's where we sort of size our opportunity in a sense agnostically of what those brands are. So I think obviously you can look at the industry through many different lenses. We try to run our own race. I think when you look at a brand like Michelob Ultra, which is the fastest growing, it's recruiting not just from one brand or the other brand. It's not a one-on-one sort of face-off, my champion against your champion. That's not what it is. You bring a relevant proposition that's hitting on the right trends and people will go there. The other example is Busch Light. Very different proposition from a Michelob Ultra, second fastest growing brand in the industry. But it's also eating from a lot of different places that sometimes you would be surprised with. So we're not about targeting one brand or the other. We're more targeting what are growth trends and opportunities and trying to run our own race as successfully as we can.
Got it. Okay. We're over time, but I'm going to ask just this last question because I'm sorry I can't get to all of these. What are your thoughts on tariffs impacting imports as a domestic brewer? Does AB support these and think more breweries should be done in the U.S. or more brewing should be done in the U.S.?
I have zero comments on what an administration is going to do. I have zero opinion on any of that, so I can't really talk to that. I will talk about, and you mentioned sort of I've traveled around in my career, one of the great things about beer that sets us apart, not only here but in many places, is that beer is local. And typically, beer is produced locally and necessarily it is distributed locally because the supply chain is impossible to figure out over, long distances. It is one of the things that sets us truly apart. When you talk to any of our retailers, a lot of them have this sort of focus on, be the store of the community, be local, be all those things. That is incredibly difficult, even if you're, you know, a PepsiCo, or imagine being, you know, in the cereal business. It's incredibly difficult to be local. Nobody has the ability like we have to be a local partner, because we are part of all these communities. We brew beer in all these communities, and we have for such a long time. We buy, in our case, more than 99% of our ingredients from local farmers, whether that's rice in Arkansas or barley in North Dakota. We buy all our ingredients locally and we produce them. So we here, not only do we have this opportunity to activate our brands, we also own a supply chain, for most of us in the room, that is very local. We should be very proud about it. We should talk about it. We should own it. And I think as we have all these discussions happening about beer and the impacts of beer, yes, one, we are the beverage of moderation, and we should absolutely talk about that. But the second thing we should be talking about is the very positive impact that we as a system, with all the hundreds of wholesalers that we have, with the brewers here, that we have right here on this country.
Absolutely. Well, Simon, thank you for
Jen.
being a good sport.
Pleasure. Pleasure as always. Off to Samcom.